If you were to ask me, what is the one thing that I would change on this build after completing it? My answer would be unequivocally not a single thing. This is a study of keen vision, focus, clarity, and the ability to cut through the noise and achieve the goal of Osprey. Hi, I'm Paul and this is Lucy, and today we're talking about Osprey. Osprey is a definitely unique color. This is a custom mix color, and in fact we've retired this color officially now since we've completed this build. And it's not a metallic, but it is a really beautiful color. And if you were to ask me, what does it remind me of? What is the emotion? What is the feeling that I have? I would say Steve McQueen. And that's going to be the best thing. So you can figure it out from there and see if you agree. Does it remind you of Steve McQueen also? So on doing this build, this was also a build of really, as I said in the beginning, a keen vision and understanding, clarity, and cutting through the noise and completing something that is just quite honestly just a very complete look. Just looking at the design, a lot of times you'll see the 6-point roll cage on it, or adventure rack, whatever you want to call it, but we opted not to do that, and for various reasons, because when we started to come into the design, we said, oh, that's just going to be simply too much. So let's be a little more conservative and reserved and create something that flows. And I've said it many a times, and I'll continue to say it, and I'll say it one more time. It's the simple fact, just because you can does not mean you should. And that's exactly when it comes into a design, when you're designing a Helderberg, because you have to design it in a way that it's going to be timeless, but you also have to design it in a way that it shows restraint. Because when you have that restraint in place, it just creates a more luxurious looking build. And I know we're talking about a classic Rover Defender, and a lot of people are like, oh, are you going to take it off-road? And the simple answer is, yeah, a lot of our builds do go off-road, and or they even stay on road because they're going to ski lodges in the middle of a snowstorm, or the clients are taking them fly fishing and getting to the remotest parts of wherever they're going to fly fish. So yeah, they do go off-road, so they are built with purpose, but they're also built to look luxurious. Whether you're in the woods, it looks great, or whether you're taking it on your dinner date or you're going to the opera, it really is the all-purpose design that works in any environment. And I'd say probably one of the things that I love most about a Helderberg is when I'm out and I'm out and about and I'm going places, is meeting the people. And I've said this many times too, that you have to automatically add some additional time when you're going to go out, because people will stop you, and they're always the most respectful, and they'll say, what exactly is that? Or, do you mind if I take a picture? And they want to talk to you, they want to see it. And I think what's really wonderful is they always seem to say, do you mind if I take a picture? They ask for permission. And the difference in a classic Land Rover, and specifically a Helderberg, is you have the luxury, you have the performance, you can do road trips, you can drive in the city, you can drive on the highway, you can do everything. But the most important thing is it's not a pretentious vehicle. Regardless of the person's age, regardless of their income, regardless of their sex, it just seems everyone loves a classic Land Rover. But I think it's also more important too, when that classic Land Rover says bespoke, it's custom, that if you're going to have something, it's all about a curation and saying, all right, I'm going to curate this to my personality. And that brings me to the point of where we built this for a very specific gentleman, and he definitely has a gentleman's taste, and we've shared a lot of texts back and forth, and I think it's always interesting, it's uncanny that the clients that I have become friends, and we have so many similar interests. So this client is also a aficionado, a connoisseur, a curator, in the sense that he also loves watches, and we talked at a fair length about watches and stuff. So it's I think that's always interesting. But the build itself, I think if you just take a moment and just look at it. And let me just be quiet for a moment, and I just want you to focus on it and look at everything from the custom Helderberg bumper, the red winch, the pop of color on the tow hooks, the radius arms. I mean, just everything that come into play here. And then even the cabling that's on the winch and how we braided that with the red and the black to complement, not stand out, not to look unfinished, but just taking everything into perspective. So let me just be quiet for a moment and let you take it all in and think about, would this be the ideal Helderberg that would be in your driveway, or would you change it? Would you adapt it in a way? But keeping in mind that this color is no longer, we've retired this color now, but would you do a metallic? So now that you've taken a look at that, some things to point out is why? What's the purpose behind the bump out right here? And it's about these subtle little things. It's all the things that make up the design. And this bump out just provides more dimension. It makes it look a little more, let's just say, brawny, a little more. It helps with the stance. And of course, every time you see a Helderberg, it's unmistakable that you know that it's a Helderberg. And we're known for the bump out in the front. We're known for the louvers in the bonnet. We're known for the very interesting colors that we have, but also the attention to detail. And when we build, that it starts at the very beginning, that you have to prep the materials properly and that everything has to be assembled. There is no shortcuts, but we're also known for the stance and the way it looks. And there's a specific way that we get to this stance. And I mean, for the utmost clarity, it is not wheel spacers, because that is cutting corners, and that's simply not what you do in a bespoke build. If you're going to do it, you should always do it right. And I mean, it's just even the simple little things that you just don't see unless it's a Helderberg. The rubber trim, the black rubber trim here that holds the wheel arch away from the body so it doesn't create any scratching. But the big reason is just the color, because it's all about the little details. The billet aluminum vents, that these are CNC'd, even the billet aluminum windshield washer spray nozzle. That's billet aluminum with a little ball bearing in it that gives it a much better pattern. The billet aluminum here, billet aluminum, and it just continues all through. So this is an attention to detail, but what I'm really excited is to show you the interior, because this is not, let's just say, the parts that make a Helderberg do not come off of a shelf. The vast majority of the parts, whether it's the internals of the engine, whether it's the actual shift gaiters or the shift rod, the glass, this is all custom done. A Helderberg does not come off of the shelf. It's a craftsman that's fabricating a lot of the elements that go into a Helderberg to make it a one-of-one, unique, and make it just pure perfection. But when we get into the interior, I think you're going to say, ooh, that really completes the package. So let's take a look at the interior, and I'll show you a few little subtleties that we did there, but it all makes it a complete design that just flows properly versus one thing standing out. And that's what makes good design, that everything goes together and it's congruent, and it has a nice effect that you don't say, ooh, that really stands out. That doesn't look right, because that's not a timeless design. So in the very beginning, I said, if you were to ask me if there is one thing that I would change on Osprey, I told you unequivocally, no, there's not a thing. There's nothing I would change. And that continues true on the interior also. That this interior was, how do I put it? I really enjoyed working with the client on this interior, as I do all clients, really. because when I make the recommendations, and they always say, yes, let's do that. Let's do that. I trust what you do because this is what you do. And I appreciate that because this is what I thoroughly enjoy. And I feel like it's a fine curation of not to do too much, but to do enough that it says, hey, this is completely custom. So with that, if you were to look really close at this interior, it is a dark brown with a saddle brown. And a lot of times you would think, oh, well, people would go with a black and a brown or something like that. But this color combination, it feels very luxurious. It feels very elegant. And then just even the leather itself. The leather is, I've said on many of the videos, just so you have clarity, if you haven't seen any of our other videos yet, but all of our leather is tanned to order. The leather does not come off of a shelf. It does not come off of a roll. That when we do the consultation, when we're talking to the client, when we talk about leather, and then when we choose the leather is tanned to order. So it's not stocked, let's put it that way. And with that process, and what we're doing with that process is we're getting a perfection of leather, but we're also allowing the build to become something that no other build will be, that it truly is a one of one. Because when you tan leather, the color of that leather, it cannot be repeated. It just simply can't, because all leather is going to respond differently to the dyes. So our leather is exclusive to us, and the reason why is because of the thickness. This is a very durable leather that it can take a lot of abuse, and it will patina over time, but it only improves over time. It only gets better over time. And that if, for example, like right now, Osprey, when it's delivered to the client and it's spectacular today, right now, 10 years from now, it's only going to be better. And that's what we do, is we're selecting the materials. We're not selecting materials for the first owner. We're selecting materials for the second or third owner, meaning that it's going to remain to be a timeless design and it's going to look fresh. That the leather is not going to start cracking and start peeling, and the bolsters are not going to wear out from use. I mean, so again, we're designing a Helderberg for the second and third owner, not the first owner. So longevity and timelessness. But we're also designing it in a way that it can be used. A Helderberg is not a garage queen. It does not sit in a garage. They are thoroughly used. And I mean, we have a number of clients that the Helderberg becomes their daily driver just because they enjoy it. They enjoy it for various reasons, but they enjoy it, and they just have to come up with excuses to be able to drive it more. And that's what happens. But talking about the leather, some things that we did in a different way on this leather is we perforated. So the light color of the leather is all perforated. And I'm not telling you it has air-conditioned seats, but it does have heated seats. But the perforation just creates a different texture, a different dimension, and makes it more attractive. And then we did the piping on the sides. And the piping, what it really does is it frames the style of the seat. It frames the shape of the seat and gives you more of a silhouette and draws your eye in. And you'll see that your eye will actually go down the seat lines, and it just allows you to see the lines of the seat. As you know, if you've watched the videos though, seat frames are custom built specifically to the client so they fit. The pedals, we adjust that specific to the client. The shift rod that's nickel plated here is specific. The length of it is specific to the sleeve length of the client. And regardless, if we're doing a two-door 90 or if we're doing a 110, we can adjust the seats that we can move them back farther for the height of the client. I mean, our tallest client is 6'9", to give you an idea. But that's the beauty of it. When you are custom building something, it gives you that opportunity to do things in a way that no one else does. And when you're custom building it and you're taking your time, that patience is a virtue whenever you order a Helderberg, because everything is built by hand. This is a craftsman's machine is what it really is. So the leather, I think it's absolutely fabulous, and nothing stands out and says, oh, it shouldn't belong. And then we even changed the audio system. This does have the Focal audio system. The speakers up here in this area are handmade in France by Focal specifically for us. And then, of course, the audio, the speakers, the subwoofer is in the back here, and it's from Focal. And then the head unit here, that we changed that up a little bit. And the reason that we changed it up is our last head unit is fabulous, but this one is a new one that just come out, and I just really appreciate it because it is digital, but it's also analog. And what I mean by that is there's just a certain beauty of when I get up in the morning and I choose which watch I'm going to wear for the day. And I manually wind it because the vast majority of my watches are manual wind watches, and I just wind it and the feeling of that. And I wanted to recreate that in a Helderberg as much as possible. And of course, the analog in the head unit has a dial that you can actually turn. And there's something magical about having dials to turn, just like there's something magical about shifting through the gears and feeling how the gear's shifting. And it's just all of it. Even the turn signal on a Helderberg, it has a very visceral feel that when you click it, you can feel it hitting the gears, and then it locks in place. And then when you turn the steering wheel and it comes out of place where it does the self-canceling, it's a very fulfilling moment because it makes that sound. You can hear that sound. And that's a sound that we lose in the modern vehicles. And I think it's a very fulfilling sound. But moving through the cabin, another subtle detail that we did is right here on the B-pillar. You'll notice that normally what this is an Italian Alcantara suede, or Italian Alcantara, normally is what it is. But we have the Italian Alcantara on the headliner. And then here, Italian Alcantara on the sun visors. But again, here on the B-pillar and all around the windows, this is all the dark leather that matches the seat, and it has the contrast stitching. So you can clearly see that the parts that make a Helderberg are not off of the shelf and they're not mass produced, that everything is specifically for this vehicle. And the reason for the leather around the window surrounds is the simple fact that when I was talking to the client, asking all of the questions and having the conversation, and the two of us really getting to know each other. And I mean, we had phone conversations, text messages, and in-person meetings. I was able to learn a lot more and therefore build a Helderberg that's specific to the client. And he has dogs. So that's where it made the decision, instead of doing the Italian Alcantara here, that could end up getting nose prints and slobber prints and paw prints and everything else. We decided to go with leather because, again, the leather is custom to Helderberg. It's thicker. It can take it to abuse. And it becomes a point of trying to clean Alcantara, which you can do, to the point of just taking a damp microfiber cloth and wiping the leather off, and the nose prints are gone. So it just made a lot more sense to do that. And then thinking about the client too, he's not the shortest individual, so let's just put it that way. He's a little taller than average, and so part of it was the design of the seat, that making sure that the back of the seat, that where the cushion, where the seat itself, it came proper on his shoulder blades, but it also was the right, because he has more height in his upper torso than he does in his lower torso. So the back of the seat is a little taller than normal, and the base of the seat is pretty average, but then also how far the seat goes back. So it gives him ample leg room, but it also supports him in an upright position, because he did make it clear that he's going to be driving Osprey a lot. So this is the interior. In the front, I'll let you take all that in, even the glass roof, the panoramic roof. But now let's go to the back. Let's go to the cargo area and talk about that. So now that we're at the back of Osprey, let me point out a few things that you may not have noticed. The first one is the backup camera is built into the license plate light, say that quickly, and then the galvanized corner brackets. And the reason we do that, it's a staple of our design, but what I'm really trying to show you is that a Helderberg is completely disassembled. Everything, every body panel, every wire, every nut, every bolt, the engine's disassembled, the transmission, the transfer case, everything's completely disassembled. And then we build it back piece by piece. This is an authentic classic Land Rover Defender, originally built in England, but it was originally a left-hand drive. So steering wheel's over here, not a right-hand drive. That makes it even more rare. It's just they simply didn't make that many left-hand drives. So finding them is really difficult. And that's where we're, we really believe it's our, well, it is. It's our passion to take these vehicles and make them better than ever and make them last for a lifetime, meaning well past your lifetime. But again, galvanized corner brackets is showing you that everything was disassembled and then everything was built from the ground up. And a lot of times when you look at a different Defender, you'll see that the corner brackets are painted. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but personally, I just don't like being able to see the paint buildup on this layer of aluminum sticking over the top of the aluminum panels. It personally bothers me. But the same is true that the top cap here, that you'll see it on other Land Rovers where you'll see the paint build up, that there is no seam under here, that it's just filled with paint. And the reason that that's filled with paint is because when they're being repainted, they're just spraying everything. Everything is assembled and it's sprayed. But on a Helderberg, you'll see that everything was painted individually. Everything was disassembled and painted individually, piece by piece. So again, there's a gap under here. There's a little seam. There's no paint buildup. And it's the same thing on this. So everything is painted individually on that. And then moving on, little trivia, I've said this multiple times, but if this is the first time you're watching one of our videos, so you have two of these lights. You have one here and you have one on the other side. This one is a fog light because thinking about it, it's European, British, it's foggy, it's always raining there. So this is a fog light. You flip this on, it's red, but the one on the other side is your backup light. So when you put it in gear, your white light comes on and it's backing up. And I do get that call like, one of my backup lights is out. No, it's not. You only have one backup light. That's the European way. All right, talking about design, the rear door covered in leather, contrast stitching. We even carried the perforation in here on the door. And then moving into the interior, well, the client has dogs, so extra padding, extra thermal, so the dog is more comfortable back here because we're just keeping the cabin more comfortable also for the pup and the humans in it too. Center facing benches, which is, that's nostalgia right there. That's what everybody asked for. But they do fold up, so you can fold them up, get them out of the way, and then, or you can pull the cushions out completely, and then they became a little storage facility here, or you can fold it up completely again. And then again, the panoramic glass roof, which this is a 2-pane glass roof, and it's got a pretty dark tinting on the top. So it lets in the proper amount of light. It doesn't give this a greenhouse effect. It doesn't make it overly hot. So even if you were in a warm climate, it doesn't get overly hot in here. I mean, you're definitely going to feel a little more temperature inside the cabin with the glass versus if we had the Italian Alcantara, because the entire body of a Helderberg is thermally insulated and it's also sound deadened. So put the glass in there, a little more heat, but it's not substantial. Let's put it that way. And then of course, just looking here, I'm just going to let you take that in for a moment. And again, I'm going to point out the leather that's wrapped around the window surrounds, and that was for a purpose. But it just really gives it a nice effect, because then you have the leather on the sides and then it's layered over the top of the Italian Alcantara, and it just gives it a really nice look. The bumper, it does have the hitch receiver. It allows, If the client needs to tow something, then he can just put the receiver in with whatever size ball he needs and pull what he needs to pull on that. So this is the latest Helderberg build called Osprey. And again, if you were to ask me if I would change a single thing, the answer is absolutely not, because this is pure perfection.